Alright guys, I promised everybody that I was going to go through everything with my quad rehab, and by far the most popular topic is drugs, of course. Um, so I'm going to talk about how I use a particular peptide, BPC 157. Most of you guys have probably heard of it. This is something you should do your own research on. You can actually get BBC 157 prescribed by some longevity clinics, which is absolutely how I recommend doing it. But I do want to show you just the method that I like, that I have had the most success with, both this time and in the past. So BPC 157, like I said, is a peptide. It doesn't have as much research behind it as some of the steroids that have been around for a very long time. It is not a steroid. It is a different type of compound that's not going to have a hormonal impact directly on things like testosterone and estrogen. However, it has been shown to dramatically increase healing time. So this quad injury was probably somewhere between a grade 1 or 2, which typically you're thinking 4 to 6 weeks healing time, and using this protocol, I'm going to say 95% better in 2 weeks. So dramatically reducing the time it takes to get better. If you guys have been following me for a while, I never like to discuss things that haven't been around for a while. People ask me questions about SARMs. I'm like, look, if you want to use steroids, that's your own decision. Talk to your doctor. But I would never use something that's untested, relatively untested, and the long-term effects aren't nearly as well understood. I don't think there's any purpose for that. This is a little bit different because I don't know of any other method to improve healing this quickly, right? Even things like stem cell and PRP therapy tend to take a lot longer to see improvement, and they can be dramatically more expensive. So again, I'm not recommending this. This is, I'm simply explaining what I do. So I have a vial of 5 milligrams of BPC 157, and then bacteriostatic water. I just took the top off that one. I'm going to take the top off this one too. And I've washed my hands, and I have my insulin syringes. So first I'm going to show you how I reconstitute it. This is pretty basic, but I figured I would go through the whole method. So generally, when you're using BPC 157, from the protocols that I'm familiar with, most people like to use doses of 250 micrograms, okay? So 5 milligrams, 5,000 micrograms, I dilute that with 2 milliliters of bacteriostatic water. That way, I know that 1/10 of a milliliter is exactly 250 micrograms, and it's very easy to measure. So you can use the insulin syringe to draw out a milliliter of water. I'll do this twice. It's important to note that not all vials are 5 milligrams. All right, so if you get something that's a different a different amount of the substance, you'll need to reconstitute it differently to make sure that you have the right, you're using the right doses. So if you can't do basic math, again, probably not for you, and regardless, you should be doing this under a doctor's supervision, even if it means going to a longevity clinic or something like that. One thing I always do with these vials, they tend to already be pressurized. There's some air in there. You can see the air is going to, because I added that water, the air is going to be pushed out by the pressure inside the vial. So I make sure I draw out a full milliliter air so it's not going to spurt in my face once I take the needle out. So when I don't like, some people use this for maintenance. I don't like that. I hate the idea of using any type of exogenous substance unnecessarily, so I only use this for acute injuries. And my protocol for acute injuries is 3 times 250 micrograms each time per day. And I usually run that for about 2 weeks. Really, it's until the injury is completely gone, and then I continue to run it for another day to 3 days. And the reason for that is a lot of times, even though you don't feel any pain, or even though I don't feel any pain with regard to injury, the tissue is still not fully healed. And so I like to make sure that I'm covering all my bases in that regard. All right, so draw. Okay, so I have my reconstituted BPC. I'm not going to reuse this needle. All right, so cap that, dispose of that safely. Again, 3 times daily. I try to spread it out throughout the course of the day. I'm going to use a fresh needle to draw exactly 0.1 milliliters, which is 250 micrograms. And then, personally, some people say they have success using BPC 157 systemically. I have never seen that. I find I get the greatest success when I inject this as close to the site of the injury as possible. right? So basically in the most painful spot. Depending where your injury is, that could really suck, especially if it's something like an adductor. However, I find it works much, much better when I do it that way. So I'm going to show you exactly how I do that. Okay, so I'm going to find the most painful part of the muscle just by palpitating. And again, most of the pain for me is completely gone at this point. I would say I'm about 95% better. There's really no pain or soreness anywhere here. But that, I guess, is just a little bit mild soreness, mild tightness right there. So that's where I'm going to inject a compound. Now, I have just taken a shower, and most of the research that I've seen says, if you're showered using clean skin, you do not need an alcohol swab. I also worry about the stinging from the alcohol swab, but you should make sure you're doing this. Make sure your skin is clean, make sure your hands are clean, okay? Whether that means swabbing, showering, whatever. I'm just going to inject that right there. This is an insulin needle. It still doesn't feel super comfortable, but it's so small that it's not a big deal. And it is a little bit difficult to inject to get the needle to break the skin. Usually these are used subcutaneously for diabetics, and it goes in much easier to fat than to muscle. But you can see I got that there. I don't think you need to aspirate, but I will pull up on the plunger just to make sure I'm not in a vein. You can see the little air bubble there. And then I will inject that. And then I will safely dispose of the needle. That's all there is to it. Now, again, this is not a cure-all. It's pretty miraculous, in my opinion. But it is not a cure-all. You still need to be doing physical therapy. You still need to be doing restorative exercise. You can't just use this method alone. I guess you could just use this method alone. It's not going to be very efficacious if that's how you do it. Again, I want to make very clear, I'm not recommending that you do this. This is just explaining what I do, being completely transparent. This is something you need to discuss with a doctor, and you need to do your independent research as well, because, again, the compound is not as well understood as other drugs that have gone through, the FDA approval process. So it's very, very, very important. However, I do find that this is something that has allowed me to deal with injuries far better than anything else that I've ever used. Now, on that note, again, in the interest of complete transparency, I am using testosterone and GH, again, prescribed by a doctor. Maybe not in the amounts, but prescribed by a doctor. I personally do not think those contribute to healing rates anywhere nearly as much. I think the healing properties of GH are very much overstated. I think it's great for fat loss. I think it's great for fullness and high doses, which I don't like to use. It's amazing for sleep quality, skin quality, but in terms of healing injuries, I don't think you're going to find huge success with GH. The exception might be if you're running really high amounts over extended periods of time, but that's not something I'm going to do. That's not something that I suggest you do either. So, I would not rely on that as a method. And again, this is all in conjunction with therapeutic exercise, mobility work, all that stuff. And I will do a separate video on all of that. But I wanted to show because, again, first of all, I want to be honest with you guys. Second of all, I do think that this is something that, hopefully gains widespread use in the future, because everybody knows how frustrating injuries can be physically and mentally, and I think when you're able to speed the healing process to this degree, it's something that would benefit a lot of people if it had more mainstream use. So those are the reasons for the video. Again, please speak to your doctor. Please do your own research. Please don't just say, well, Ben does this, so I'm going to do this too. But if you do all those things, I do think this is something that could be beneficial. Last thing, make sure you refrigerate the opened vials. Bacteriostatic water has a form of alcohol in it that's going to prevent microorganisms from growing in, so you won't get an infection when you use the compound. However, it does need to be refrigerated, because otherwise, you're risking more growth of whatever nasty shit can come up in the vials, and you don't want to risk that, right? Transfer from your skin, needles, whatever. It's just be very, very safe whenever you're doing anything like this. I think that covers it. Pretty simple video, but I know a lot of people have concerns about stuff like this, and so, I think the more information out there is the better. Again, informational use only. I can't stress that enough. But if you do have questions, and the ones I feel I can answer, in a responsible manner, I'll be more than happy to do that. So, again, I do appreciate everybody's support. Everybody's super nice. Well, 99% of the people were super nice regarding injury. Again, I do think this is exactly 2 weeks post-injury. I'm going to say 95% better. I pushed really fucking hard on hack squats today with no pain whatsoever. I'm planning to work up to some 495 tempo squats on Saturday. And then we'll see. You know, I'm going to be in Austin. I'm going to be at the Pioneer Meet. What I do there is still completely up in the air. But I do appreciate everybody's support. I love that I'm able to do this with my life, and I'm really grateful for you guys, contributing in any way possible.